Well, hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to the Red Zone Live, right here, Facebook and YouTube. I am your girl, Natalie Red, and oh my goodness, have I got a treat for you all. So, check this out. My guest for the night has written for a lot of artists, naming Trey Songz, Nicki Minaj, Jamie Foxx, Johnny Gill, Tony Braxton, and more. He became well known after being featured in the Glade holiday commercial. Y'all remember that campaign? Yeah. See, I call him the master of musical mashup. That's right. If you haven't seen his mashup game, you need to get with it because this young man is talented with songs like Thing Called Love, Be Great, Long Song Away, and his latest song, which is number 15 on the Billboard, ladies and gentlemen. I am talking about none other than DC native own Mr. Kevin Ross. Do me a favor. Welcome Kevin Ross to the Red Zone, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, what's going on? Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming to the Red Zone, boo. You just don't know. It's about that build up. So, Kevin, what I like to do at the beginning of every interview is give my guests, the artists, an opportunity to tell people about themselves. Whatever you want to share, but in your words, because we all have done our read up on Kevin, and we know a little this, that, and the other, but we like to know what the artist feels about him or herself out of their own words. So tell us about Kevin.
Kevin Ross, Washington D.C. native, singer, songwriter, producer, label owner, artist advocate. Just have a great passion for music, for helping creatives like myself, and a God-fearing man at the end of the day. I think that's kind of encapsulates me in a nutshell.
Oh, okay. And then you know what? God-fearing is important, because who are we without him? Who are we without him? So let me ask you, have you always been interested in doing music?
Yeah, I've always had a passion for it. My father, he sings, and like my whole father's side of the family, are just very like musically inclined, and just has a great deal of knowledge as it pertains to just records and just a lot of history. And so music was all around throughout the house, and I knew that I enjoyed singing. And as the years progressed, I started to build up the courage to sing in church, and then went from church to then auditioning for Duke Ellington School of the Arts in Washington D.C. and getting in there, and really just kind of creating a foundation. And then once I got to college, Berklee College of Music, up in Boston, at that point was kind of like, okay, I think I could do this as a career. So it was like levels and tiers to it. But I think from a very young age, I knew that I wanted to be in music. I just didn't know how until much later.
And Berkeley, Beantown. I lived in Massachusetts for about 20 years. Ooh.
Nice.
Yeah. Beantown, Massachusetts is a different flavor.
For sure. For sure. Listen, so as you know for sure.
Oh yeah. So seeing that you've been surrounded by music all throughout your childhood, what was that one song, if you can remember, that caused you to say, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do.
Wow. Okay. The song that made me feel like this is what I want to do. I'm gonna have to say, I want to say it was definitely a Stevie Wonder song. I'd say to start off like "Ribbon in the Sky." "Ribbon in the Sky" was definitely that song that was like, this makes me feel a certain kind of way as it pertains to just like just the freedom to sing. It was, a very easy song to learn on the piano. Um, so yeah, that kind of allowed for me. That opened up the door to say, oh man, like if I could, I would pursue a career in music.
Oh, so and you
Yeah,
mentioned playing the piano. So you tickle the ivories, you play the keys.
yeah. I play keys and a little bit of guitar for sure. Yeah,
Oh, see, something I didn't
yeah.
know. Look at
Yeah,
that, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah, this is. I always keep the ivories right next to me, and my axes over there too. So yeah,
Oh, sookie now. Oh, getting to know
yeah,
Kevin. So you mentioned Stevie Wonder, and I can get why
uh,
he would be a great influence because Stevie Wonder is a very talented man. His musical ear is like
yeah,
it makes you say whoa. So outside
yeah.
of Stevie Wonder, who are your musical influences?
Uh, Donny Hathaway, Marvin Gaye, Patrice Rushen, Joni Mitchell, Prince, uh, Neo, to Maxwell, to George Duke, to I mean Duke Ellington. I mean,
Mm.
it's a wide range. It's a wide array of folk that I kind of gleaned from and had the pleasure of working with. You know, but yeah, a lot. Let's say a lot. You know what I mean? Like a
Oh
lot of
wow!
folks.
And you
Yeah,
mentioned Patrice Russian, and that's
yeah,
Patrice, beautiful voice. Um,
yeah.
Whenever I ask this question, you hear the same singers, the same response, but to hear Patrice Russian, that right there, that's a little different for me. That's a little different because
Patrice
Patrice. Go ahead.
Patrice means a lot. Patrice means a lot to me, and should mean a lot to the culture because she was one of the first Black female successful producers. Period. Right, and
Hmm.
so there wasn't a lot of women, and just in general, doing what she was doing during that time. Let alone being a Black woman doing that and producing "Forget Me Nots" and "Remind Me," and you know what I mean. Like she had some records, and so for her to have a vocal prowess and her piano playing skills and her music sensibility, I just feel like she's an unsung hero. And being from DC, you hear a lot of those songs by Patrice.
Hmm.
And once I started doing my research, I was like, wow, like I love her sound. I love everything about it. And for her to not get the credit, it's my job as the the next generation or two generations after her to make sure that her name and her legacy is being passed along, to allow for other Black women to understand that it's possible, that she's one of the trailblazers for something like that has been done before and been done well.
Wow. And yes. And my girl, straight out of the DF dub, DJ Angie is on. One of the baddest DJs in the DF dub.
Hey.
She's on and she said that part. She said he
For
knows
sure.
his stuff. He knows his stuff. And
Yeah.
you really and truly do. So let's talk about your journey
Yeah.
and how you would describe your music and you
Mm,
yourself as an artist.
okay. Okay. That's a large encompassed question, but we'll break it down to, I guess, musically.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
We'll start there in a sense of like musically, I describe my sound as being a bridge. Acknowledging my predecessors, but then also, still,
Keeping
looking at
current.
the present and yeah, living in the present, but then also, building that bridge for the future. So it's kind of a multi-generational kind of um, sound that I'm trying to create. So it's nostalgic yet current, yet some people may not understand it until later. And so, that's kind of where my sound is.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And so now that was about musically. How would you
Mm.
describe you, the artist?
Unassumingly dangerous, for sure. Yeah. Very unassumingly dangerous. Yeah.
Unassumingly dangerous. I like that. I like
Yeah,
that. You like to walk on the edge. Shout
yeah,
out to
yeah.
producer Jerome Pitts. I see you, Jerome, tuned in. Thank you for tuning
Hey.
in. Thank you for tuning in. All right, so now during this pandemic, we've all, as
Yeah,
artists, as producers and musicians, we've all had a bit of a challenge. Um,
yeah,
those who stay out on the road really had a challenge.
yeah.
How would you, how did you take advantage of that moment, this time? What did you do during the start of all
Um,
this?
the first couple of months, I kind of like, I want to say the first 2 months, I kind of just, I was reassessing things because I didn't know how long, the pandemic would be. I was like, oh, well, I need about a month break anyway. So let me just go ahead and enjoy it, kick back, watch movies, play video games, eat whatever I want because the world's going to be back open in no time soon. And I was wrong. And so I had to regroup. And, at that moment, I had to make sure that I checked in on family as well to make sure that their well-being was good. Certain family members that may have been out of a job or have never spent that much time to themselves in one place, right? So checking in with family was important as well. I think for me, um my life prior to COVID felt like COVID in the sense that all I do is work in one small confined space, whether it's in my room or it's in a studio, whatever it is. So it didn't feel too much different for me personally,
Hmm.
but I know that my family, friends, and colleagues felt it a little bit more. I adjusted just off of the strength that I had. I had like a project already ready to go. It was just a matter of when I was going to release it, when I was going to, put out certain records, and when would be the right time for it. So I knew that there would be money coming in. And then, of course, somebody put me on as far as investing, cryptocurrency, stuff like that. And, just kind of playing around with that. And, before you know it, you start to create this sort of, pattern for yourself and learning how to survive and endure and thrive. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And
Hmm.
in a space that isn't, that a lot of people would fold under, you know what I mean? But it really showed the resilience of the creative community as well. You know what I mean? Like making something out of nothing. I mean, even me, I'm not an interviewer, but I ended up, making a show on Facebook called the Mashup Show. You know what I mean? Just to create a level of consistency between me and my community and my fan base. In order to just every Monday night, that's what we did was communicating. We talked to, amazing artists every week, you know what I mean, for, 3 to 4 months. So, those are the things that I did during the pandemic to help me get through and to survive and thrive.
Wow.
Yes.
That was but that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I know I've talked to several different artists who said they took the opportunity to write. It caused them to actually be able to dive deep into their psyche and really
Yeah.
crank out some good stuff. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's a good
Yeah.
thing. Now, talking about you as a producer, how a
Yeah.
writer producer, how did you link up with the Tony Braxton? Come on, how
Tony
did you link up
Braxton.
with that? Because that right there, whew, that,
All credit to Antonio Dixon. Antonio Dixon is a producer that is under Babyface. I met Antonio Dixon back in 2013, and this is when I was working with Face. I worked with Face for about 2 weeks, and we were just working on stuff. And Antonio Dixon, took a liking to my creative process, and he felt like I had, the ability to, write and produce for other people. So he would call me every now and then, and literally it was just like one summer day. He was like, "Yo, what you doing today?" And I was like, chilling, like, probably working from home. And he was like, "Oh, come to the studio, like, let's just vibe, you know what I mean, and like just create some stuff." And sure enough, went to the studio. It was him, JQ, JQ Smith, who he was one of the writers from off of Usher's, Yeah. And
yeah,
I mean, JQ's written a lot of stuff, K-pop stuff. I mean, he's like a vet with a lot of plaques and stars and stripes. You know what I mean? So, but all that to say is, Antonio gave me the opportunity. He was just like, Kev, just play something, right? And so I started playing these chords, and I laid down the chords. And he was like, good, that's good enough. And he just kind of like looped it, and and then we created the hook for it, and then all of a sudden, next thing we got a song called Sex and Cigarettes. And then I left. Yeah, I left, and then I didn't think anything of it. And then he called me a couple months later. He's like, yeah, I think we're gonna put Tony on it. I was like, Tony Braxton? He's like, yeah, we're gonna put Tony on it. I was like, all right, cool. Like, I've heard people say so many times that people are gonna be on records, or you actually have people on records, but it may never come out, or whatever. So I'm like, okay, cool. And then next thing you know, he's like, yeah, like the project's coming out. I was like, what's the project called? He's like, it's called Sex and Cigarettes. I was like, well, ain't that something there, right? And then next thing you know, it gets nominated for a Grammy. And it's like, this summer session that we had just randomly has manifested into, something that I, beyond my wildest dreams. So that's really how that manifested. And yeah, man, like much love to Tony Braxton, Antonio Dixon, JQ, everybody involved in the process of that record. So that was fun.
Well, I bet that was. Now, speaking of your creative process, before we go into your music, talk about your creative process. Is there a ritual that you do, or it just depends on where you are? What is the creative process for Kevin Ross?
In my opinion, I believe that melody is king, right? So, I can't necessarily start anything without a melody in place. So some kind of top line, even if it's a top line, like with chords, I have to have some kind of melody in place in order for me to like get going. So after that, then comes the lyrics. So I'm not the guy that's going to sit and write poetry. But I will create poetry within a melodic structure, right? Okay. And so then after that, I'll lay down the chords, put my top line over it, and then I start working on the beat. And sometimes I'll be able to flush it out completely, like a Looking for Love or God is a Genius. But then other times I may have to tap for help with, like a record like Thing Called Love, or other records that I have, and, in my catalog. So it varies, but I know that it really starts with the melody, and then it really finishes off with really taking time with the production and making sure that it feels good.
Oh, and feeling good is what it should. And I gotta say, your music feels right. That's a beautiful thing. I love that. I love that. Now, most of the viewers know you as Mr. Mashup. I call you the master of musical mashup. That's what I call you. Wow. Your mashup game is so fierce. Like, I got to tell you this. My first time seeing a video, as I was telling you earlier before we came on, my daughter is the one who turned me on to your mashup game. And I got to listen to it. So I said, okay, I'm going to give this a shot because I love music. I love playing around with music. Yeah, mine didn't sound like yours, and it didn't go on Facebook, so I didn't post that. It wasn't happening at all. Because I said, I'm not a Kevin Ross. I'm going to leave Kevin Ross to it. This is his thing, and I'm going to let him do it. You know what I mean? So it was one of those things, and I got to ask, what caused you, what set it off? Like, what said, let's do a mashup?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me? I can see you, can't hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, give us a minute. Technical difficulties. Kevin had a little camera problem, so he's going to sign back on. And there he is, so I'm going to bring him in.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I don't know what happened. But to my defense, it is raining crazy in Philadelphia right now. It's a
Oh,
storm going on. So
don't
to
feel
my
bad.
defense, I don't know what happened, but I apologize.
It's raining like cats and dogs here too, so don't feel bad. So tell me
Yes.
what started the whole mashup groove? Like what started that?
I can't take credit for that either. My brother sent me an app called Acapella, and he sent me an idea of him, just kind of like, doing harmonies around it. I was like, this is dope. And so then I sent one back, right, of like these little harmonies, just like quick stuff, like 15 seconds of just like doing harmonies and whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
we just went back and forth for a couple weeks doing that. And then eventually it hit me, and I was like, why don't I just like post one of these one day? And I posted one. And now, granted, you know what I mean? Like, you always have to look at your views from a sliding scale, right? So, like,
Mm-hmm.
you just can't go from like 0 to a million. So I looked at it from a sliding scale to say, oh, this mashup is doing way better than any other post that I've ever done, right? So maybe I should continue doing these. You know what I mean? Like, cause it's
Mm-hmm.
fun anyways, right? I'm
That
doing
is
it with my
true.
brother, and now I'm getting all this engagement. So it started off as being kind of a one song thing, and then I was like, well, what if I just like fuse two songs together? And then after a while, I was like, you know what? Maybe I should do like a medley of records. And then it really expounded into more of a 2 minute, 3 minutes, sometimes even as long as 5 minutes of me doing these mashups. And I want to say from the time it maybe took 6 months before it really took off on Facebook. Maybe a little longer than that, but I know within the first year it took off. As far as this one mashup called Crazy, I did a rendition of Nars Barkley Crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and it scored my first million views on Facebook, and I'm like, oh my god, look at that. But it also motivated me and encouraged me to say, okay, keep going. There's something here. But yeah, that was the start, and since then, I've decided to keep it going, but also to kind of keep it precious, because it is something that is time consuming, but what I'm understanding that's valuable as well, to differentiate and separate myself from my peers, to say, yes, I can create records, but then I can also create this level of nostalgia, and salute people in my own unique way. I'm not the first to do it. I
No.
won't be the last to do it. But I just wanted to put my creative signature on it. You know what I mean? And that's all that the mashups are there for. It's a great exercise for me musically. It's a great exercise for me vocally. It salutes all of the people that we're honoring within that mashup.
Mm-hmm.
And people enjoy it. So it checks a lot of boxes every time that I do it.
Well, it's a great thing because it also
Thank you.
shows your vocal range. That's what
Thank
impressed me. The one thing, being
you.
a former choir director, I listen
Yeah,
for harmonies. I listen for pitches, and it
yeah.
shows your vocal range. So, and young man, I got to say, your vocal ability is just awesome. It is awesome.
Thank you.
I love it. I love it. So let's get to the good stuff.
Let's
Now,
get it.
thing called love.
Hmm.
When I first heard it, when I first saw the title, it made me think of a lot of 90s movies, a lot of early 2000 movies, especially the movie
Right.
with Nick Cannon and what's the young lady's name?
Oh,
Christine Milian.
Christina Milian. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes. It made me think of that.
yeah.
What's the basis behind that song?
And just for clarity, so there is a song called "Thing Called Love," which was off of Audacity, and then there's a new song called "Looking for Love." Now
Mhm.
that could be complicated, so I just want to clarify: which song are you?
Thing called love.
"Thing Called Love." Okay, so "Thing Called Love." The reason why I created that song in particular was because I truly felt at that time that I wasn't good, or I felt like I was incapable of giving a woman what they deserved at the moment. I was so engulfed by everything that I was doing and what I was building,
Mm.
that I was like, I need a theme song for myself, where it's like I do want to love, do want to, to be present, but it's hard to be present while, you're building something that's bigger than you as well. It takes constant, um just constant work, just constant, like, checking in, and nuances and tweaks. And
Mm-hmm.
some people may confuse it as narcissism or self-centeredness. But anybody who owns a business, anybody who is an entrepreneur, understands the amount of time that it takes and the amount of work that's put into getting your business from off of the ground. So whether you're making records, or whether you're, you're selling T-shirts, or whatever your business is, it just takes a lot more time than the 9 to 5. Where it may take 8 hours for somebody, but it may take us 16 to 20, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
you ain't gonna find too much time, hey, let's go to the movies and let's do X, Y, and Z. It's like I may have a day. It's like, well, everybody has time to just relax. It's like, yeah, but who wants it and who doesn't, right? What's your
Mm-hmm.
what's your end goal? So
Mm-hmm.
all I have to say was I needed a song that could put my, that could encapsulate my emotions and feelings, to say, I desire this, but I feel like at this current time, I'm just incapable of giving you what you need.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that's deep. That is deep. And the fact that you recognize that at such a young age, that's
Mm,
growth. That's early growth. So kudos to you. I'm serious, cuz not a lot of people think that way. They don't understand. People, actually, I was having this conversation about music and relationships earlier with a friend of mine who's also an artist.
mm,
And I said, what people fail to realize about our lives is this: it's it can be very difficult to balance that part of
mm.
life and music, because if you don't have
Yeah.
that right partner that understands
Come on.
that this right here is not a game, this is not a hobby,
That's it.
this is who you are. If you don't have
That's
that
it.
partner, it's not even going to be worth it. You'll be wasting their time and yours, and we all know time is
Absolutely.
valuable. It is valuable.
Absolutely.
Ah, shout out to Tim Bias, who is also Mr. Genuine himself, music director. He's on, and he said, Kevin, you're telling the
Hey.
truth. You are telling the truth. So let's get into some more music. Now, my
Yeah.
favorite song, I do love your new
Yeah.
song. I do love your new song,
Thank
but
you.
my favorite song is Long
Uh-oh.
Song Away. I can sing
Yep.
that
Yep.
to no end. I love that song
Oh
because it,
man.
it's it speaks truth. Forever, forever is truly a long song away. What
Yeah.
was the purpose for that? Because it had to be either something you witnessed or something you experienced.
Ah man. All credit to God for sure. And I say this. I had the concept. This is the only one of the only records that I had a concept for before the melody. And it came to me. I was like, I was dealing with a girl where she was trying to figure out, like, what was the next steps for us, and what
Mm,
we were doing, and what's going on, and this and that, da, 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 da. And I was just like, man, like, I'm so irritated at the fact that, like, I understand that she's asking this, but I don't want for her to compare and contrast other relationships that she sees on social media, to be like, well, how come we can't have this? And it's like,
mm-hmm,
why can't we just focus on us, and why can't we go at our pace, right?
hmm, hmm,
Our pace. But that takes compromise too. So I was just like,
mm-hmm.
man, like, and just kind of playing off of my life, and it was engulfed with music, yet and still. And I was like, man, like, you know, it's a lot, like a long song away. Like, if I could just get this girl to just let this record play, if I could just let her, Like if I could just let like if I could just, so and that's where the concept it came from. And I was like, I love the, the long song away part. And so I just
Mm-hmm.
had that in my phone for months on end. And I would take stabs at it. And I was like, nah, this ain't it. And then one day I'm in my living room and then these chords. No, matter of fact, my homie, he left his guitar. And I started to fiddle around with it. And so I started playing the chords and I'm like, that sounds good. I'm going to record this. And I'm, playing it. And then I'm like, yo, this is dope. Put a little groove to it. And then all of a sudden, I create this hook for it. And I'm like, yes, long song away. This feels good. Then comes the verse and, it just really happened naturally. And it became one of my favorites during the process of that album. I never knew that it was going to do what it was going to do. I didn't know that I had a number one adult R&B record on my hands. I just knew that record reminded me of home. It reminded me of DC in a way where it was comforting to me. I would always play it at night. I would never play it during the daytime. But if I was riding, because at that time I was living in Atlanta, and at that time, if I was riding at night from a studio, I would always put on Long Song Away. And somehow it just comforted me. It just made me feel like I was surrounded by love and family. And even though it was a song about patience, just the energy of it. But I never knew like all of the components of why it would be what it would, soon to be. But yeah, like that was kind of the making of it. And I created that record in 2013 and it didn't come out until 2017. So we sat on that record for 4 years. And if it wasn't for God, it would have never came out, to be honest. So.
Everything has its timing though. Everything. And it came out at the perfect time. Because when that song came out, I actually was going through a bit of a split. And I played that song like it wasn't anything. I told you, when I heard it, I had to instantly look it up. Instantly look it up. Because it was just, man, you should have seen me on the highway. Forever's a long, it's a long song away. I mean, I was jamming. You couldn't tell me nothing.
Let's go. I love it. Yeah.
You couldn't tell me nothing. And it was one of those things, you hear a great song, you have to instantly share it. If you all don't know, you need to get down with it because here it is. And that's just the way it is. The way it is. And I thank you for it. Trust me, the song is healing. That's why it hit so hard the way it did, because it is healing. Everything happens in God's time. There it is. Hallelujah.
Yes.
So your new song, Looking for Love. Now, I had to, when I first heard it, I had to go back. I went back and I listened to the lyrics. Usually I listen to the beat and I get in a groove. But I had to go back and listen to it, and I zeroed in on the lyrics because I had to figure out, I needed to know what was the definition, because every song has a different definition depending on the perception of the person who was listening to it. And for me, this was a song, and this is my take, of a person who is accepting that sometimes things don't work out. However, if you find that in your space period, in your gray period, that okay, this was where I needed to be, then guess what? Pick up the phone. You can always call me. I will always be there for you. And I was like, wow.
For sure.
Oh, that's deep. That's deep.
Yes,
that's deep.
I like to consider myself a very how would I call it? I'm a wise yet problematic person and creative. So it's never clear and cut with me. It's never like, and this is what the song is about, and da 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 da, and everybody's happy and we all live happily ever after. Because life isn't like that, right? So
no, it's not.
Most times, most situations have a lot of gray areas. It's a lot of mud to it. So I want for my songs to reflect that. Like I want for my songs for people to feel the level of resolve for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have to be the resolve to say, and then we ended up being together. And in this song, we are left lingering. We're left in this place of, this unrequited love, you know what I mean? In a sense that um this man, this character is ready for love and this woman isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, I can find somebody new, but if I'm gonna be honest, they can never compare to you. It's something that you possess that I can't stay away from. I
Mm.
don't like the fact that you're cocky. I don't like the fact that you have these certain traits that could naturally turn me off with anybody else, but it's you.
Mm-hmm.
So, and only you can make me sing. We'll keep in touch. And when you're ready to look for love, and when you're ready, you know where to find it. But I wouldn't do that for anyone else. So she's the exception to the
To
to
the
the
rule.
rule within this song, is to say, I will break all my rules. I created a line. You ran around and you said you needed space. I bought a rocket. That's the sarcasm. The sarcasm of it, to say, okay, you want all of these things and you desire this space. You break all of these rules with me that I wouldn't let fly. But here we are. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And so that's, me as a writer, to create these scenarios that are just not black and white and that are not clear cut, but for people that may be possibly going through it, or that may have felt that way, can truly, you know live in that space, and to
Mm-hmm.
understand and say, you know what, I can relate. Or they may not be able to relate, but at the end of the day, that's my job as a writer, is to create a unique situation that doesn't always have to be the fairy tale ending.
Well, it is a unique situation, and your music shows just how mature you are, that you can share things that you are experiencing and going through. A lot of people don't realize that artists, majority of the things that you write about are things that you have gone through, that you have experienced.
Indeed.
So that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Now, your music, are you co-producing? Are you producer? What is your role in that besides being writer?
I am a producer.
Ah,
I am a
ah,
producer. I mean, through and through. I was a producer before I even knew I was a producer, to be quite
hey.
honest with you. You know, I I really I sold myself short with Long Song Away. So I wrote and produced that song. Right. So that's a 100%er out the gate. Boom. Right.
Wow.
So and it didn't hit me until like way after, to say, hey, you wrote and produced that record, like, and that's why residuals was coming in a certain way where you was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
because nobody else is on this song, right? But all I have to say is, like, yeah, I'm a producer. I'm a producer. I produced Looking for Love. I produced Long Song Away. I produced God is a Genius. I produced a lot of records. Um, and I will credit that, my producing ability, to my music mentor Troy Taylor.
Okay.
Watching him produce and watching him execute and finish records through and through, allow for me to become um, a budding producer, in a sense of, I mean, he's one of the ultimate, right?
Hmm.
So I sit somewhere far on the other end of the spectrum, but it is something that I am, and that I do, and that I strive to continue to do more of, and hopefully for more artists as well. And just really crafting uh, a signature for artists as well. So that's kind of a part of my DNA, is producer. I undersold myself short for so many years, but that is something that I do
So
quite
as a
often.
as as a producer, I usually ask most
Yeah.
producers that I interview this question. In
Yeah.
working with various different artists, what is your pet peeve as a producer?
My pet peeve as a producer when working with an artist is readiness. Um, to 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 be prepared. And when I say prepared, not just being prepared vocally and not being just prepared to write or co-write or whatever the situation is, but be prepared emotionally.
Mm.
Be emotionally available and present. That's a pet peeve. Don't come into the studio with 1,000 things on your mind and on your heart and then expect for us to crank out a smash or a hit, because now you're doing a disservice to you and you're doing a disservice to me, because now we can't. It's hard for me to gauge who you are. It's hard for me
Hmm.
to get the best out of you if you're not fully here. If you're on the phone, yeah, hold up, give me 1 second, give me 20 minutes, all right, and I'm gonna be right back. Now we
Oh.
can we can create a song, but it's not gonna feel as authentic
Hmm.
as you may want it to be. So that's a pet peeve. Just be prepared to be emotionally available and present within the moment to create.
Wow. And see, and there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That is Kevin Ross, the producer. Kevin, I want to
Yes.
thank you so greatly. It is a true honor for me. True honor for me to interview you because like I said, you have a talent that is so fresh, so edge cutting. You and I love it. I love it because
Thank you.
you are inspiring and very just motivating, and I love it, and I thank you so much for just chilling with me
Thank
here
you.
in the red zone. So before we go, tell everyone how they can find you on social media and find your music.
Yes, so make sure that you follow me at Kevin Ross Music, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I'm also on what is that? TikTok now. I am Kevin Ross. And also make sure that you go and get Looking for Love, stream that now. Also, I have a project coming out called Drive 2 at the end of October. And I have a new record that's coming out called Wave Runner featuring Rotimi and Afrobeat. It is a Afro wave slash R&B record. It is a vibe for sure. So be on the lookout for that in the next couple of weeks. I'm super excited. And yeah, just join me on the journey. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for allowing me. Ladies and gentlemen, again, this is none other than I call him the master of musical mashups, the young prince of R&B, because trust me, he has that vibe. Mr. Kevin Ross, again, thank you so much for joining me in the red zone. Greatly appreciate it. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to end this and then I'll be with you in a second.
Yes, ma'am.
So, you all, that was Kevin Ross again here in the red zone. Be sure to, if you missed the video, trust me, you can watch it. It will be up on Facebook and on YouTube. Be also sure to tune in to the red zone Monday through Saturday. I will be featuring Kevin's music and also featuring this interview. Again, thank you all so much for vibing with me here in the Red Zone Live, right here on Facebook and YouTube. Love you all. Peace, and I'm out.